Hi everyone, in this video we are going to do something that I think is very interesting. Guess what? We are going to compare an hardware with its plugin. We are talking about hardware and plugin of an historical Eventide product for its 50th anniversary. And we are talking about the great Omnipressor 2830 AU. Two, three, four. Omnipressor is much more than a traditional compressor, so much so that we find on its panel a series of controls that are not normally found on a standard compressor. Also because it works as an expander, and I would say much more. We will listen for these functions very soon. So on the desktop of my computer I have the instructions, and placed on the studio desk I have the hardware. And if we go back to the desktop, which this time shows Pro Tools, I have the plugin, and we will see the hardware below and the plugin above to listen and see the differences. Let's take into account that this is not an instruction video, there are instructions online, okay? All these controls are related to each other, so first of all, the input. Let's remember that we are in an analog domain that is totally different from that of the plugins are. We are in the analog domain, so the input goes from -60 to +12. The tracks we are going to use are at -18 because normally we enter analog equipment at this level. So the input allows us to raise or lower the input level, and obviously this affects everything. Not only the total level, but for sure the threshold of the device. All we know that the threshold is the point at which the compressor begins to work, and also the point at which the expander begins to work, but we will see it later. We have something related to the threshold. We move from the other side. The attenuation limit and the gain limit means that here we set the maximum possible attenuation and gain. Working on the input, the threshold and the attenuation limit, I'm able to decide whether to compress 10 dBs, 20, 30 dBs and all the intermediate values, and in the same way, when I go to compress, I can decide to regain the level with the gain, matching the same input level, doing a gain match, just to be able to compare the signal with and without the Omnipressor. So we have to be very careful, because we can get very high output levels, up to 30 dBs. So when I compress, the LED goes to green. I get the attenuation that is decided by the threshold and limited from the attenuation limit. And if I haven't attenuation, I go to a gain stage and determine the gain. You see it becomes more and more red. So you know it's very important to control these parameters and values: input, threshold, attenuation limit and gain limit, and obviously the output. After these controls, obviously, once the signal level reaches the threshold, we have two usual parameters: the attack time, and here is particularly fast, 0.1 milliseconds, and the release. I can decide to put a bass cut, and it works in sidechain. So we are not cutting the low frequencies in the audio, but only for the detector, and if I do a bass cut, the detector will not hear the level produced by the bass frequencies, and therefore it will compress less on the total. There are instruments that require this to have a certain type of sound, and others that don't require it. Then it depends on the sound engineer's tastes. Here we can activate an external sidechain, and here we have a part of that which we will mainly use for compression with the ratio from 1 to much higher, and on this part the expansion. We have also the link that is only useful if we connect two or more omnipressors, so that only one acts as the detector and all the others instead are going to reproduce what we are requesting from the master. And here we have the possibility of seeing the input level, the output level, and the gain. Everything that enters, if it is compressed, will be attenuated, and therefore we will see the pointer move to the left. And when the compression, determined by all the parameters we have seen, ends, depending on the speed of release time, we see it rise and becomes red. And therefore we will go above that famous zero that we have determined with this. Otherwise, he already starts from this level. What does it mean? That if I start with a gain of plus 10 dBs and go to attenuate with these values, I will feel the effects much more immediately, because it will be immediately attenuated. As first sound material, I choose my song Scarlet's Movie. Let's work on this snare. Okay, so what I did is, there's one snare that with an hardware insert goes to the omnipressor hardware and is this on the left. The second is the same snare that goes on the plugin. I made sure to have exactly the same signal level and same sound pressure to be able to compare them. Too many times I have heard videos and I have seen and listened to videos in which comparisons are made with wrong signals. One signal is lower and one is higher, and it always has the most pleasant effect on us when the signal is higher, and it always seems more beautiful to us. The hardware minus 28.2, the hardware, and the plugin same level, minus 28.2. The controls are almost identical, so much so that the result is very similar, and we are going to listen to it. Plugin. Hardware. It's very important to pay attention to the attack of the sound. Okay, it goes without saying that you have to listen with good headphones or good speakers, but if we listen in the mix, the analog, the hardware, has a different penetration and a different feel, although when listening in solo, it doesn't seem so different. Questo era analogico. Plugin. Let's listen now on the same song, same sound scenario, a different drum part, the bass drum, the kick. Okay. Same compression on both. Let's check if the level is the same. Minus 22.8. Exactly the same, minus 22.8. Let's listen starting from the plugin. The difference is not incredible if you are not used to listening to certain details. I have to say one thing, that respect to the snare track, I put the cut on the bass, both on the plugin and on the analog part, to avoid having that a bit of pumping effect, so the detector doesn't detect the lower frequencies of the kick, but it works a little bit more on the medium-high attack. One thing that we haven't done is hear the difference with and without plugin. In this case, it's the plugin, and I'm going to put in bypass. Okay, I'm compressing very little. Same song, let's move on a distorted power guitar in the end. In questa parte finale ci concentriamo su queste pennate. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Vediamo. Eccolo. Plugin. È un po' più ferma, spinge meno. Jaga jaga jam. L'attacco è più cattivo, è abbastanza tipico dell'hardware, si muove in questo modo. Di nuovo. Da da da. The hardware have more punchy attack, and while the hardware is da da, the plugin is a little bit more flat, da da da, instead da da da. Important to listen for these differences. There are also a musical difference in the mix. Let's now move on a different use of the Omnipressor, the expander function. It works great, perfectly following the shape of the sound. Ok? La traccia originale è questa. Ok? Ok? Posso decidere di cambiare la profondità in questo modo. Vado a prendere col mix la diretta e con questo la ratio di espansione. Quando vado a 1 non ho espansione, più vado su più espansione. Tempo di attacco. Ho dato un gain limit, la massima attenuazione. Se faccio questo io non sto attenuando, ok? Decido di attenuare il massimo possibile, quindi questi lavorano insieme. Eccoci qua. Se voglio avere il rullante molto secco faccio questo. Ho lasciato il reverbero proprio perché si sente ancora di più questo effetto slice. La traccia, mix, ma la cosa bella è che non perdiamo in nessun modo l'attacco. Facciamo caso all'attacco del rullante. Vado un po' più lungo. Fantastico. I decided to connect my two omnipressors in a way that allows me to have a double control in stereo. Any control that I touch on my devices perfectly works on its channel, and at the same time the parameter that gets the higher compression or faster becomes the master, driving the other channel that becomes the slave. In this way, even if it seems a strange mode to connect them, I really like it and I maintain a very balanced and effective stereo image. Let's start in bypass. Let's work on the attack. This is the master. But this is a master too. On both channels. Listen for the kick. Not side-chained. Okay. I control the length. Okay. I need more output. In, out, gain reduction. Okay. It seems doesn't work. Okay. The one that gets more compression becomes the master. Okay. Parallel. The omnipressor can be used also as a backward compressor with the crazy effect that we are going to listen. In this case, this device can be used and driven by your creativity. Modo. Ok, se vado a cercare il BPM giusto. Ok. Occhio, sentiamolo. Partiamo da questo. I millisecondi diventano il nostro sidechain. Ok, e posso decidere con l'attacco di fare delle cose creative. We're still on the drum bus in mono and we are using only the hardware omnipressor, okay, to work on the drum bus using omnipressor 2830AU. Questo andrebbe messo in parallelo rispetto agli altri, ok? Quindi questa è la batteria, tolgo il mix. E quello che mi preme sottolineare come attack e release seguono il suono. Qua il rullante diventa violentissimo. Anche qui dobbiamo trovare il tempo musicale del compressore. Così lasciamo libero l'attacco del rullante, perché la cassa l'ho già liberata. Di nuovo, tutto fermo. Qui sono circa 4-5 millisecondi. La fermo. La fermo di qua. Ok. voglio attenuare di più spingo, se voglio guadagnare di più. Il rullante qui è sgranato, qui si sente che è sgranato il rullante. C'è molto il rullante sotto. Applicazione estremamente rock, da mettere in parallelo. Eccola qua. What can be done with a machine like this could lead to a video lasting hours. But what I wanted to make you listen to is how much certain machines can also impact creativity and sound design. We started by comparing the hardware with the plugin, and we finished working only on the hardware because, okay, I'm an old hand in the profession and I started with analog. And I'm happy and free when I get my hands on these machines where I can do two things at the same time. Nothing that can be done with the mouse and with the eyes. Okay, I know it could be done with some MIDI controllers or with any remote control. I have it and I use it. But this kind of hardware equipment have something that can surprise you. And believe me, Omnipressor is an incredible machine. I am very happy to have had this machine months ago. So thanks to Eventide, to Anthony, Mr. Factor, and Nalia, who they wanted to quickly send it to me. And I always want to let you know that my videos are not sponsored. I bought these machines because before to collaborate with Eventide, I was and I am an Eventide fan. Since the first H3000 I bought in the end of 80s. I hope that this video can help you to better understand and appreciate the Omnipressor. Ciao.